And here is the cheat. This is the cheat that will make you masterful at music production and have amazing sounding records way before you should. As I've outlined, it probably takes about a year or two to have basic competence where you can fool non-musicians into thinking you're a good musician. It can take maybe 4 or 5 years before you're so good at music production or whatever you're doing in music, performer, arranger, whatever. 4 or 5 years before you really have valuable marketable skills, and 10 years before mastery. But you can shortcut and have masterful sounding records in your first year or two as an artist or as a producer or as a songwriter. And here's how. Here's the secret cheat. And that is you take advantage of other people's experience. And this is one of the biggest things that holds people back from reaching mastery as quickly as they could. They refuse to benefit from other people's mastery. They refuse to benefit from other people's marketable skills. I have met musicians who've only been singing and writing songs for 2 years who have some awesome sounding songs out. They're like, whoa, these sound really good. They're arranged really well. And actually the song structure is really good. And the writing is pretty darn good too. You've only been doing this for a couple of years. This sounds more like a record that someone who's been really doing this for, 7 or 8 years. And what's their secret? It's that they worked with people who've been doing this for 4 years and 5 years and 7 years and 8 years and 9 years and 10 years and more. That they're willing to say, okay, I've spent a couple years where I can do a parlor trick of singing a small repertoire that I know well enough to entertain someone possibly. Who else can I plug into this so that we can make it feel really professional? Because it's not going to be me right now. Or even better yet, you're at that level where you've been playing music and writing songs for 4 or 5 years, and you're really a competent songwriter now because you've written a tremendous amount of songs in that period, and you've done a tremendous number of performances, both alone and in front of others in that 4 to 5 years. And now, instead of putting in another 4 or 5 years to also get competent at music production, while your skills as a songwriter and a performer stagnate at that level, so that 10 years out, you can have an okay sounding release, you could instead say, okay, 4 or 5 years, I've dedicated this to songwriting. I'm going to hook up with someone else who's been doing music production for 4 or 5 years. And then all of a sudden, right now, I get to that level of having a decent release 4 or 5 years faster than if I had done everything by myself. Or I'll hook up with someone who's been producing for 10 plus years. And hooking up with that person will give me the mastery in record production with the good skills in songwriting and performance. And that can yield a record that people actually want to listen to. If you are a competent writer and performer, and you have something heartfelt, and then on top of that, you're working with a producer who helps bring the best out of you, and what they're doing is maybe not only making the record sound better, like EQing the kick drum right, but they're helping you curate, like, let's not do these 3 songs, let's have you write 15, and we'll just release these 8, these are your best, and they're guiding you through that. Man, after 4 or 5 years of experience as a musician, you could put out meaningful, resonant releases if you're hiring in some of this other stuff. It also works the other way around if you're a producer, where just bringing in performers or arrangers or mixers, or if you're a mixer, here's a shortcut to better sounding mixes, all right? You've been mixing for 4 or 5 years, you're getting competent results, you're in a place where you can charge, depending on how good you are, somewhere between $200 and $500 per mix. You've gotten to that level. You want to all of a sudden make it sound much more like your mixes are worth $800 or $1,200? Work with a mastering engineer who's been doing it for a decade. All of a sudden, it sounds like you don't have 4 or 5 years experience mixing. It sounds like you have 8 years of experience mixing or 9. And the whole perceived value of what you're doing has gone up significantly. But this leads to the last point I want to make about how long it takes. And that is that growth comes in spurts. And maybe this is something that you've recognized in your own journey. Tell me if there have been times where you've had spurts of growth. Because the reality of growth is there's a constant grind to growth. And the way growth really happens is you being consistent, doing things again and again and again, and keep on showing up for work again and again. I think it was the quote is attributed to Woody Allen that 98% of success is just showing up. Showing up again and again is important. But some of the time, we'll be showing up for months on end and nothing seems to improve. But then we'll have this eureka moment where all of a sudden we catapult forward. It feels like there was 3 months of no progress, and then it felt like there was 3 months of progress in a single day. I get that sometimes from people who've taken things like the Mixing Breakthroughs course, the Compression Breakthroughs course, the Mastering Demystified course, who become members of this and have gotten mixed feedback, or who've done the Q&A sessions. They have those eureka moments where it's like, whoa, just leapfrogged, thank you. And we're all hunting for those. I'm always hunting for those. We're always hunting for the magic bullet, the next eureka moment, right? Because we know how powerful those eureka moments are in our lives. But they don't always come reliably. They don't always come from you showing up again and again and again. And sometimes you do have to seek them out. And I think that's why we're always searching for them. So that's the other big thing that comes from collaborating with others and benefiting from others' experiences and hiring other people's experience is you can have these leapfrog moments. Like I had a leapfrog moment just from sitting down with Joe Lambert for an hour and having him tell me everything about the way he does mastering. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. No one ever explained it to me that way before. I can do that. And we actually have a video, a masterclass with Joe Lambert, where he does the same thing for you and takes you through a 40-minute process of him mastering a record. And that video, I think, is a very popular one. It's one of the more popular mastering videos on YouTube. It's right here on our channel. I think it has over 100,000 views last time I checked, maybe more. And people seem really appreciative of it because the way he breaks it down and how simple it is. I got to tell you, as transformative as that video it was even more transformative being in the room with him and hearing those changes in that environment. There's something about the physical presence that makes it stick even better. But if you can't get that kind of physical presence, things like long form courses or a long form video like that one, tremendous. Or working with a mastering engineer if you're mixing. This is some of the feedback. My favorite feedback I get from my mixing clients is not when they tell me, you made my mix sound so much better. I mean, I love that. I got someone who wrote me today, said, Justin, you're so MFing talented. This sounds awesome. And I forgot to say thanks because I ignore that stuff. I wrote back and answered his other questions and totally ignored the compliment. And then I was like, oh, P.S., thanks for the kind words. After doing it like 10 minutes later, I was going to like take a shower and I'm like, oh, he said something nice. I feel bad that I didn't acknowledge it at all. So I went back and wrote like, oh, P.S., thanks for saying so. It's very nice of you. But I didn't do that for me. I did that for him. So he wouldn't feel like I was ignoring him. That's not my favorite advice or feedback that I get from people. My favorite feedback I get from people is when they've asked me for mix feedback. I give them the mix feedback, and then they come back to me with a new mix, and it sounds way better and has addressed everything that I told them they could improve in their mix. And now I have like almost nothing to do in the master. That is my favorite compliment. That is the favorite feedback that I get from my mastering clients, because anyone can say nice things, but not everyone can show you that you actually helped transform their life and transform the way that they do something. And I don't think this isn't just a pitch for have me master your record, although if you're cool and you make cool music and, I can master your record. But it's also a pitch for finding other people like that. Like you could be a mixer who hires a mixer to mix your stuff, or a recording engineer who hires a mixer to mix your stuff. And you can learn so much about the music production process that way. Or you can be a self-recording artist who says, today I'm just going to be an artist and I'm going to pay out a little bit for this session to have someone else record my stuff. And we lie to ourselves and we tell ourselves that we can't afford it. Oh, I can't afford to go to someone to record my stuff or to mix my stuff. Meanwhile, we take out the credit card and buy the next plugin suite, or we buy the next fancy preamp that's supposed to solve all of our problems. And here we've just laid out $1,500 here, $500 here, $1,000 here, $3,000 on a new set of speakers thought were going to solve our problem. We're like, oh, I can't afford to have someone help record me. I can't afford to have someone help mix me. Meanwhile, you spent thousands of dollars on studio gear, on your home studio stuff, whereas you might have been better off keeping the cheaper stuff and paying like, I don't know, even $500 one day to be in the room with someone who has more experience recording than you, or spending $1,500 or $2,000 one day to be in the room with someone who has an amazing track record of recording stuff. And just to see how they do things, what it sounds like in there, what your records that you like sound like in there, what kind of energy they bring to the mix, like how zoomed in and focused are they, or how much are they zooming out? How much time are they spending fiddling with different things? And like, watch their process. What are they doing differently from what you're doing? Guaranteed you're going to pick up some tricks from that situation. So that's the last secret hack, where I will say the best way to get better at playing music as a musician is to play with really good musicians. Back when I was playing music a lot, back in more of my teenage years and my early 20s, I felt like every time that I sat in on a session with a musician who was way better than me, I was like, whoa, I just learned something about how to play music. I just learned something about feel and rhythm and pocket that would be otherwise impossible to learn. Amazing. And I've also experienced that the best musicians who I know, who I've heard play, are the musicians who spent the most time playing with other really good musicians. But this is also true in music production and audio engineering, that the people who I've seen progress the fastest in their own skills are those who have collaborated with other people who have better skills than them, who are not afraid to do that. And the people who have annoying degrees of sonic success earlier than they should are the people who've collaborated with others and taken advantage of other people's mastery. Well, that only took me an hour to say. It'll take you a year or two to get like basically like reason like somewhat okay, like you can do something in music, 4 or 5 years to potentially have marketable skills, and 10 years and then the rest of your life for mastery. But I really feel like each of those milestones can be cut down significantly by one of two approaches, and that's investing way more time and sacrificing other parts of your life, number one, or number two, collaborating with others, or number three, otherwise benefiting from the experience of others. And that could be through things like courses and information and stuff like that, but it can also come out of collaboration. And honestly, if you do a lot of collaboration and all that other stuff, like all of a sudden, once you start investing in working with other people and learning from other people, the thing number one of really staying invested, eyes on the prize, I'm making sacrifices to do this, becomes so much easier, because by spending money to get involved with people, or not even necessarily, it doesn't have to be money, although it often is, but just spending time to be involved with people who like do this day in and out and have been for ages, it just puts you more in that mindset like of like, it's okay to take this seriously. Cause that's another thing you don't get without collaboration, is you might come from a family background or a friend background that doesn't say to you, it's okay to take this really seriously. And it's okay if you skip a few nights out drinking. And it's okay if you put World of Warcraft on the back burner. And it's okay if you're not caught up with all the latest TV shows, because this is worth putting your time into. And that's another thing that you get through osmosis by benefiting from the experience of others. That vibe of, yeah, this is a path that's cool for me to go down. And now I have like accountability partners in this path. And I think that's something that's absolutely invaluable. If you like that short clip, you might love the full-length video that it came from, or you can consider becoming a member. Just hit the join button down below. If you really want to go deep, check out one of my great full-length courses like Mixing Breakthroughs, Compression Breakthroughs, or Mastering Demystified. Each one of them is guaranteed to change the way you work forever, for the better, or your money back. Hope to see you on the other side.